I'm Dr. Yvonne Cason, the president of Spiritual Awakenings International. Welcome, everybody. It's wonderful to see you today. We are absolutely delighted at how Spiritual Awakenings International continues to grow. We now have subscribers in 99 countries around the world. We're shooting for 100. So please put in the chat where you're joining us from today. Robert Baird just put in, he's joining from Newport, Oregon, and I'm joining you from Toronto, Canada. Our speaker today, María Elena Sarmiento, is joining us from Chile. Oh, we've got someone from Costa Rica, Ana Cecilia from Monterrey, Mexico. Wonderful, wonderful. All across the United States. Wonderful. So welcome everybody from wherever it is that you're joining us. So it is my great pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, María Elena Sarmiento. Now, María Elena lives in Chile, as I mentioned. She is a housewife, an animal lover, who, because of her multiple STE or spiritually transformative experiences, is now an STE researcher and writer. She is also an extremely popular speaker at numerous conferences in English and in Spanish. And in fact, she has been our most popular video on the SAI YouTube channel when she presented to us in Spanish. So I'm absolutely delighted that she's now going to be presenting to us in English. So I'm pleased to present María Elena Sarmiento.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. I really appreciate your invitation. And I have to say that English is not my native language, but I promise I will do my best. So I apologize in advance. Thank you very much for this kind invitation. So, Yvonne, you invited me because you wanted me to share with this beautiful community one spiritual transformative experience that I had so many years ago. And I'm very glad to share this because at this point in time in my life, due to that I already raised the family, 2 kids, and I am retired, I think that it was the moment that I found peace in my life. I found calm, so I could share this transformative experience because in part, I think that it is not my own experience. It is everybody's experience. So maybe it's a warning, maybe it's just a story, but this is something that just happened when I was 24 years old. So the story begins at Buenos Aires. I am Chilean, but I went to Argentina because I wanted to take a Tai Chi course with a Chinese master. Not because I had any spiritual interest at all, but because I just had time. I had 3 months and for free. So I said, I want to experience something new. I had a friend who said to me, you know, I know this practice is good for health. It will be wonderful if you could practice this. And I said, okay. So I took my luggage and I went to Buenos Aires. So I arrived there and I found this master, this 80 years old Chinese master, Wang Xing. And I started to learn with him the art of Tai Chi Chuan. So at the beginning, I felt like Karate Kid, you know, in Chilean version. So I enjoyed this so much, and I really put all my effort in learning Tai Chi. So but it was very painful. Physically, for me, it looks soft, but it is not as soft as it looks. It requires a lot of effort. So I start to do a lot of exercise during the morning, in the afternoon, at night. And the teacher saw that I was like a good student. I was making drawings and, I was trying to memorize all the movement, because at the beginning, everybody was going one way and I was going the other way. So I was super lost. But I put myself on it, and he saw that I really wanted to learn. So he took me to the zoo and made me look at the animals. And he said, these are the movements that you have to make, So I learned from the birds, from the tiger, from the birds. And he had a special attention with me. One day when I was more or less 15 days learning Tai Chi, I had a very weird experience at night. One night, I woke up and I was outside my body. And I found that very funny. I was laughing. I said, what is my body doing there? What am I here in the middle of this fog? What is it? And then I saw some lines with colors. And those lines took me very fast to another place. So I arrived to a place that was white, and it had waves in the sky. So I said, this is the Arctic, and this is boreal aurora. This is very strange. What am I doing here? What is it? So I saw a group of people, and I said, I'm going to go there with those people. So I didn't walk. I just moved. And we were all in front of a big cave. And all the people there was about my age, but from different colors and different skins and hair colors. So I thought these are people from all over the world. And they were all in silence, and they started to walk inside that cave. I waited a little bit because I said, what is the cave doing in the Arctic? What is this entrance? I never thought there was an entrance here. So I started to walk inside. We walked a lot. And finally, we arrived to a place like a platform. And what I saw there amazed me so much, because I saw several men that look all the same, about 60 years old, but they were very tall, about 7 feet, something like that. And they were suspended in the air. So I look at those men, and I was amazed, and I said, what am I doing here? And the man in front of me, he said, all of you, you are prepared for the future, and you will know this. And he moved the hand, and a door opened, and I saw a huge computer. At that time, we didn't have internet. We didn't have cell phones. It was 1988. So for me to see a huge computer was like very strange. And I said, but I haven't studied that. I don't know how to handle a computer like that. And he said, don't worry. And then you will find this. And he moved his hand, and he showed me like a flying saucer. I said, that's a flying saucer, like the one I saw when I was a child in my town. And he said, yes. So I asked, what do I have to do to find that? And he said, all you are doing is well done. So suddenly I found myself again in the white place, and those lines of colors took me to my bed again. So I woke up in the morning with headache, and I said to my teacher, you know what happened to me last night? I went to a very weird place, and I found this very tall man. And he said, those are masters. Then you need more Tai Chi. So he started to train me, You couldn't imagine. 4 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock, at 12 o'clock, at 3 o'clock, at 7 o'clock, at 10 o'clock, every day, 180 movements every time. And I was very tired and a little bit upset at the beginning because I said, why do I have to make this exercise? I came here to have holidays, not to suffer. And you're treating me, like, I don't know, Shaolin warrior. And he said, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. You just, do it. So I spent 3 months in that exercise, in that work. And I felt very strong, very strong. My body changed completely. And I felt also very flexible. At the end, I said, well, this is not as bad. So because I'm changing, I feel strong. And at the end of these 3 months, I arrived there in August. So in November of that year, the course was going to finish. And so I moved to an apartment in downtown. And my teacher said to me one night that I had to go to his house and rescue his cat because the cat was on the roof. So I said, why don't you, take the cat tomorrow? I will show some meat and the cat will come back. No, you must come now, 4 o'clock in the morning. So I went to his house and I went to the roof and I saw the cat. I called the cat. The cat didn't walk, So I walked through the roof. I took the cat and I gave him the cat. Take your cat. I'm going home. I'm sleepy. I want to sleep. And he said that in that moment, this was the final test. You walk in a roof at night without any protection. You didn't realize that, but it was a huge test. You could have died. And then I took consciousness of what I done. And he said, you don't need more Tai Chi. You are Tai Chi right now. So that was the way I finished my course. And so I went to my apartment and I started to think a lot about the experience I had, the weird experience I had in the cave with those men. So I started to think, probably these men exist. That was, my first thought. And if they exist, I would like to communicate with them. But what can I do to communicate with those men? So I called a student that was a friend of mine, and I said, come to my apartment. I have this feeling and I have these thoughts that come to my head the whole day. And I would like you to help me. If you have an idea, how can I communicate with the men of the cave? And she said, it is very easy, it's very easy because I used to talk to my grandmother when I was a child. So I can help you. Okay, so we were very young. Okay, please take in consideration that we are 24 years old and you do stupid things when you're young, But there is also destiny. So she said, we are going to organize a table. We are going to put some papers around with letters on it. And we put a glass in the middle of this circle. And we call those men of the cave. I found that very funny, and I said, okay, let's do it. Let's try. If nothing happens, well, nothing happens. That's it. So we started this like a funny activity, We never thought that something was going to happen. And I said, well, I don't want any material thing. I just want to be a better person. That's all I said. And probably that was the most powerful invocation you can do. But that was very honest from me, because I really wanted to grow spiritually. So we started to wait. We put everything there, the glass and everything, and we were having fun on that. And at one point at night, on November 9th, from 9th to 10th, that huge glass started to move. And we had a finger put on top of that glass. So I said to my friend, "You are moving the glass." She said, "No, no, you are moving the glass." I said, "No, I'm not." So we were so scared in this moment, so scared. That was, I think, one of the most terrible experience I have ever had until that moment. So the glass started to move to the letter J. And then, well, it wasn't Spanish, okay? But the move moved to the letter U, and then letter A and letter N. So it moved to and showed the name Juan, in English, John. So I said, okay, we are talking to something called John, and now what? And then I started to feel a huge pain in my back, in my neck. And that pain started to move through my arm and until my hand. And I said, I have a terrible pain in my body. And my friend said, I will bring a pencil, a pen, And I have read, she said, I have read that intelligent spirits can communicate by writing. Okay, let's try, So she brought a pen and a notebook, and the pencil moved by itself without my will. I was just following this movement. And the first thing we saw, it was a map, and a map of Europe. But it was not like the map of Europe, because there were so many islands. And in the south of Italy, there was a huge continent that doesn't exist today. So I thought this John doesn't have a clear idea of what geography is, because Europe is not like that. And these are just islands. And then it moved and it made the whole map of America complete, North America and South America. And then he put a dot in a zone that I think is Niagara Falls, something like that. After that, there was another drawing with the face of a man, very clear, with many details. And then that man was pointing upwards, and there was a flying saucer over his head. And then we tried to enter in a communication with this being. I asked it, how do you communicate with me? What are you doing? What is the system? And he made a drawing of the sensitive and motor nervous system that we have. I had some studies in anatomy and neuroanatomy, so I could understand. When he made the drawings, I found the pyramidal cells and also huge round cells that are special neurons that belong to the sensitive system, nervous system. So I understood that he or it was using that electromagnetic system, and it was not hurting me, and I could understand the process. So I accepted in this moment it was happening, okay? That was the way it was happening, nothing bad, happened to me. So we started to make questions. Of course, we wanted to know if we were going to get married and if we were going to have children. Those were our intelligent questions at that moment. But John didn't answer. On the contrary, he put some figures that we knew from Tai Chi, and he started to try us to understand that he had a message for us, that we had to put attention on that message. After many hours of this dialogue, a strange dialogue, he started to write words. And he wrote a sentence. And the sentence was, there is lack of love in the world. There is lack of peace, but there will be masters of love to sustain this world and the worlds. That was his message. And then he said that a huge fire in the future will affect the earth. So we got scared and we said, is this fire going to affect us? Are we going to die or something? And he said, no. But he didn't say what kind of fire was it. He didn't explain if it was a meteorite or a Nibiru or solar flare. He just didn't. He just mentioned a fire. So we understood that we didn't have to make like personal questions, but questions related to his message. And he said also that Tai Chi was not a combat system. Tai Chi was an expression of love for God. And that the spirits 10,000 years ago teach some priests at Shaolin temples using this electromagnetic system that he was using with me in this moment. So it was an expression of love for God. It was not a combat system. And then he said that we have to find the man that he put in the notebook. So he said that one of our friends from the Tai Chi course, she knew him. And he wrote the name of that friend. So it was about 6 in the morning already. We spent about 6 hours in trying to understand, you know, what John was trying to say. So at that time, my friend said, I have to go to work. And I said, I'm not staying here in this department. You know, if there is an spirit here, I'm leaving. So I went to the street to have breakfast, and we called, before we left the department, we called our friend. And she said, I'm sure I know that man. So let's meet at the San Martin Square at night, at 9 o'clock at night. Fine. So I spent the whole day going from here to there, you know, trying not to come back to the department because I was scared. So at 9, I left the department and we agreed with my friends that we were going to meet there at the square. So I left, I took the papers with me. And when I arrived to the square, I started to practice Tai Chi, which is very normal in Buenos Aires. And when I was doing that, I suddenly saw a very tall man coming fast to me, very fast. And then I looked at him and I saw his face. And then that man was at my side. And he said, good night, María Elena. Did you bring the maps? And I couldn't believe what happened, what was happening to me, you know, and I said, "You are the man of the drawing." And he said, "Yes." So I was so scared. I thought it is a Martian. This is a Martian, you know, he's going to abduct me. I'm going to leave planet Earth. At that time, remember, we just had comics, you know, we didn't have internet, I didn't have any knowledge of that. So that man said, "Don't worry," because I started to cry. He said, "Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to make anything bad to you. Just take seat, please." He was very kind. And so I sat down. I was very nervous, and he sat down, and there was another man coming, very handsome, I have to say, younger, you know, and he also said, "Maria Elena, good night. How are you?" And I said, how do you know my name? And who are you? Why do I have the, you know, this drawing with you, and there is a flying saucer on top of your face? What are you? Where do you come from? And they said, "Look, we cannot tell you exactly where are we from now, but we can tell you that we come from Europe in this moment, and that we are looking for people like you because we have to deliver a message for you. And we are apostles." I said, "Apostles like in the Bible? And who's John?" "Who's John?" You know, John. Yeah, we know John very much. He's also an apostle, but he lives he doesn't live in the material world like you and us. He lives in a spiritual realm. And I thought, where are my friends? Oh, they are not coming. They said, "Your friends," and they named my friends. They knew the name of my friends too. They are not coming. They are busy. So I was so scared. And I said, "Well, what is the message?" He said, one of them said, "Christ is coming back to earth." And I said, "Jesus Christ?" Because I didn't know the difference between Christ, like consciousness, and Jesus. I thought they were talking about Jesus. So I asked, "Is he going to born again?" And they say, no, he's not going to be born again. He's coming back." And I thought, because if he's going to be born again, I am not the person you're looking for. I'm not a virgin, so I think you're making a mistake. So they started to laugh, and I thought, well, these persons, you know, they are nice, and I was trying to say anything, you know. I found that this was an opportunity that I couldn't lose. But it was very strange, and I was scared too. So they laugh and they say, no, Christ is coming back to earth. And that will produce a huge shift on earth. This shift is going to have geophysical and geological changes, but also spiritual changes. You are not involved in the geophysical changes, you are involved in the spiritual changes. Would you like to help Christ to come back? They asking me, and I said, well, I think he doesn't need my help. But I think it's a good idea that he's coming back. You know, I don't know where are you from, but I'm telling you, here on earth, we have problems. So if Jesus wants to come back again, I think it's a fantastic idea. But I cannot help. How could I help? You know, I'm nothing. He can come back by himself. You know, he doesn't need me. So they said, okay, but if you could help, would you? And I said, of course. If you have a problem with the personnel to prepare this in advance, of course, yes, I can help. I said this with innocence, and I said yes. And they said, well, if you want to help, you have to know that it is all about consciousness. You have to know consciousness in your work and also your own. For me, those words were like, what is consciousness, And they said, so if you agree, you will have to travel all over the world to find out about consciousness. And I said, I guess you are full or you ate poop because I don't have any money to travel all over the world. And they said, poop. They started to look each other and they laughed. They said, no, we haven't eaten poop and we are not crazy either. You don't worry, we will take care of that. I said, okay, the work it seems fun. So, but I want to know one thing. And they say, yes, ask. Am I going to get married? Am I going to have children? I'm very sorry, that at one point that was my main question. I could have asked things about the universe. No, I just wanted to know. And they say, yes, you will find a very good man and you will have 2 men. Fantastic. So I take the job. With that answer, and due to the proposal was to travel and they were going to pay for it. So I found that was very nice from them and I accepted. So they say, okay, now we have to give you instructions, specific instructions. And if you want to receive those instructions, we have to travel together. And you have to find us tomorrow at 12. So we will travel. And I said, where? Travel where? And they said, to a place where you will find a fissure. They were cryptic in their answers. They didn't answer straight to my questions. So that became serious. I said, okay, listen, I will come back tomorrow, not because I believe you everything you are telling me, but because I have to know what is happening. Am I getting crazy? What is all this craziness? What is this Christ coming to earth? Why do you know my name? Why are you telling me all this? Why you know the name of my friends? And that's why I'm going to come back tomorrow, because I want you to give me answers. Okay, that is the reason, not because I believe you necessarily. So they said, it's okay with us. So one of them, the younger, took me to my apartment, and I immediately made phone calls to my friends. And yes, both of them were busy at that moment. They received visitors. Actually, one of them went to the square, but she didn't find me. And I said, this is very weird. I didn't see you either. And well, they came to my apartment and they tried to convince me not to go next day with those men because that was very dangerous and I could lose my life. So I said, I need to go. And I spent all that night talking to them. They said that they were going with me next day. They went with me, but at one point I didn't see them anymore and they didn't see me either. So I arrived to the square with my luggage and they arrived. But after we spent the first 5 minutes together, I understood that it was not a physical trouble. I understood that they were going to test me in some way. So in that moment, a person arrived there and he talked to me and he said, don't go with this man. You are already forgiven. They are taking you to big suffering, and you don't need that. You are forgiven already. So I said to the apostles, who is this man? Why is he saying this to me? And they said, just look at him, look at the eyes. And when I look at this man, the glance that he had was so bad. It's like he couldn't touch me, but he was trying to make me get out of that experience. And he started to insult me. So I said, listen, please leave us alone. I choose to go. These men are kind and you are not. So please leave. And that man left. And that's when I realized that it was not a common experience that I was going to have. And I found out, I said, these are tests, like spiritual tests. So we moved to a coffee and they asked me, how are you? I said, I'm fine. I understand this is not a physical trouble. And they said, no, but we are going to take you to another place. So we moved to a restaurant and at the Retiro train station. It was a huge place, very big. And then they said, we want you to have lunch, okay? We want you to be strong. And it was already 12 o'clock. And they said, okay, let's have lunch. They just took water. And I had lunch, and they said, just look at what you see and you tell us what you see. Okay. So the people in the restaurant started to leave, and other people entered into that restaurant, but those people were all like beggars. They were like very poor people, and they look at me like I was their enemy. And the apostles said, don't move from the chair. Just look at them and just tell us what you see in their attitudes. So I said, okay, I started to describe. I see that hate between themselves. I see violence because they fight against each other. I see that they don't eat everything they serve. I see that they are not taking in consideration other people. I was describing just like I was watching a movie, but with real people. And that exercise took us like 3 or 4 hours. It was very painful. Finally, they said, what are you really looking at? I said, I'm looking at humanity, the state of humanity today. And I'm not looking at something happy. What I'm looking is something that I have never seen before in the way that you are showing me. So they approved. And at one point in time, they said, but it is not only the humanity outside, it's what you have inside yourself. And then the worst part of the test started, because they knew my life from the beginning. They knew everything I did in my life, all the bad things I did. And they started to make me remember that. They said, remember when you were selfish in this opportunity? And they described that. The pain that you make this person feel. And I couldn't deny that. I say, yes, I remember. You didn't know how much this person suffered when you were ironic or when you were indifferent. You know that, do you know that indifference is the worst sin in the universe? And I said, no. I thought the lie or stealing or killing other people. I say, no, it's the indifference. And you have been indifferent many times to many people. So, sorry, they show me all my darkness, all my darkness. I couldn't hide anything because they knew my life completely. And I felt so sorry. And I thought at that moment, this is hell. I am so bad that I died and I came to hell and I deserve it. I just felt that I deserve it. And I listened to all the apostles had to say about my life. And they were right. They were absolutely right. They didn't say anything different to what happened. I hurted many people without even knowing that. At that moment, I thought that being strong was important, that that you have to be always on top of other people, and it doesn't matter if people suffer or not. You have to be the best, and you have to be competitive, and all those things that I learned at that moment meant nothing to me, because that was all wrong. And what happened to me is that I felt inside myself all the pain that I made other people suffer. I felt it. I felt every pain I provoked to other people, even when I was so young. And I felt very sad. I recognized everything they said to me. I didn't have more answers, more questions. And at one point in time, when I thought I was in hell, that I was not going to resist anymore, the voice of John came to my head, and he said, "It is not that, you're not in hell. Resist, just resist." So after, I don't know, 5 hours of that, one of the apostles said, "Do you remember a young man in the desert?" And I said, "I've never been in a desert." And he said, "Try to remember. He was young, you were young too. It was in Egypt. It was a school. And then, I don't know if due to the stress or what, but a memory came to my head. And I said, yes. How can I remember something I haven't lived because I didn't know about past lives?" And I said, "He's Jesus. I met him when he was young. I was a student in Egyptian temple, and he was a student too. I have this memory. Why do I have this memory? But I recover not only that memory, but a hope in this moment. I have to resist. There is hope. I have to resist." And then when 12 at night came, I was so exhausted, tired, but I was also empty. There was not more darkness inside of me because they took all the darkness outside. And I felt that I didn't even deserve to live. And I said the only word that I could say, forgive me. I don't know if I said this to them or I said this to God. It just came to my soul, the only word, forgive me. When I said that at 12 at night, the apostles stopped. And at that moment, they said, she's coming. And I saw in front of me a figure, a transparent figure, like a bride, a young woman, beautiful, like a bride. And she moved to our table and she moved the hands like this and she showed me the word. And she said, this is going to be a superior world. And you are Lucia. You are light in the darkness. Give your clothes to the poor. And then she turned back and she left. And I knew that the test had finished. So I left, I walked after her, and she moved to the street and she disappeared. So I walked through the street and I arrived to the square San Martin again. And then I felt this emptiness. And suddenly, that emptiness started to be filled with an energy, with something I have never experienced before or after that moment. I started to feel light. Everything became light. Everything became love and forgiveness. And I started to experiment in an ecstasy of love. And I received knowledge. I could understand all the languages. And what I could understand is that this experience I had, everybody in the world at one point is going to have the same experience. They will be confronted with their darkness. And once they are empty from that darkness, they will experiment the highest vibration that they will be able to experiment. They will experiment love, health, forgiveness, light. And when I was feeling that great manifestation of God inside myself, I said, this is the future of humanity. We are going to be purified, and then we will live the way we are supposed to live. The apostles came. I watched at them, and I knew inside myself that they were all mates of me. So I said, thank you so much. And at that moment, a golden disc was on our heads. And they said, we have to leave, to leave. And I said, it's okay, I understand. And then I started to lose that feeling because it was so strong that at one point I thought I was going to die of love. So I started to lose that feeling. And they said, everything is going to be okay. And I asked them, will I see you again in the future? And they say, yes, we will meet again. But now you have to walk. And don't worry, because you will understand everything in the future. So another person came, very blonde, in a blue uniform. And he said to them, we have to leave. You know, we are taking you from Earth now. Very serious. So we said goodbye to each other, and that was the end of the experience. So next day, I went to see my teacher, and he saw my face because the radiation of that golden disc was so big that my head, my face was red, and also my hands. And he said, you found the masters, right? And I said, yes. So I appreciate so much that you talked to me, because I could resist that experience because of you. So I decided in that moment that it was time to come back to my country. And this is what I did. I came back and I spent about a month in my room, just going to the kitchen, to the bathroom, nothing else, because I was so sensitive, so sensitive. I couldn't even watch myself in a mirror because I felt ashamed of what I did in the past. And it cost me a lot to recover from that experience. The apostles said to me, write everything. Please write everything. Don't forget anything. So during that month, I wrote that experience in detail, so I couldn't forget anything. And I kept it. I kept it until now that I decided to talk about this. I went to the doctor. That was my first movement. I wanted to know if I was crazy or what. And he made me a lot of tests. And he said, listen, María Elena, you are okay. You are a healthy person. You are intelligent. Don't worry. I cannot tell you what happened to you. But let's consider this experience as a form of art. I am not a specialist in art, but I can recognize when I see beautiful art. So don't worry. Medically, you are healthy. So find your way, in life. And so that was the experience. Of course, it was it has a lot of details and it's longer, but I now adapted to the time frame we have. So after so many years, 36 or something, I still remember this experience every day. Every day. There is no one day that I don't remember it. And that I try not to make mistakes. Of course, during all these years, I have done some. I'm aware of that. But I'm also try to be every day like the best version of myself. I know now that everything we do is written somewhere and someone knows it. And so at this point in my life, I just think that when they asked me if I wanted to help in to help Christ to come back to earth. Now I understand exactly what it is, is being a good person and also share with others this spiritual transformative experience that maybe is a warning for some, maybe is just a story for other people, but for me, it was and it is a reality. So by sharing this now, I feel that I am taking this heavy weight from my soul that I kept for so many years. And now I release it because I also need to be empty again. So if I share this experience, it is also good for myself. I haven't found all the answers yet. I have found some of them, and I keep working to try to understand what really happened to me in a different level. Because in this experience, there are levels, and those levels also depend on my own consciousness. So this is my experience, and I'm very glad that I shared this with you today. So if you have any questions that I can answer, I will be glad to do it.
Thank you, Maria Elena. That was absolutely beautiful and profound, that experience that you shared. I'm so glad that you shared it with us now after 30 years of keeping it private. If anybody has a question for Maria Elena, please put it in the chat. We have a few questions already. The first question for you is from Anna Cecilia, and she would like to know, Maria Elena, have you met again with the apostles since then?
Okay, I haven't met them physically, okay? But when I came back to my home, a week later in Chile, I had a dream, a very powerful dream. And in this dream, I saw Jesus Christ. He was a being of light, pure life and love. And the apostles were beside him with the same clothes, and they were happy. They were so happy. And at that moment, Jesus gave me a key, a huge key. So when I woke up, I had this key in my hand. So I would like to see them again, of course. I have so many questions for them. But I will say that during the first 5 years after this experience, I looked for them like everywhere. I really wanted to meet them again. But after 5 years, I said, Maria Elena, you have to stop. If they want to reach you, they will. You don't have to look for them. If it is necessary, they will look for you. So I had to take many decisions in my life after that experience. And one of them was to stop looking for them.
Fascinating. Thank you, Maria Elena. Our next question comes from Robert, and who, as you probably know, had a very, what they call panoramic life review in his near-death experience, where he could feel the feeling of the other people he had affected in his life. So his question comes from that. And he says, would you feel as if you had a life review when you experienced all the things that had happened in your life, and you could also feel the feelings of others you'd interacted with? Did you feel it was like a reckoning of all your life and interactions with others?
Absolutely. That was absolutely. Since I was 5 years old, because I was so mean to my brother. And even those things, they recall me. So it was a recall of my whole life until that moment. but also there were some things that I think I didn't live them in this life. Things that came from past lives. But even then, I recognized that even when what they were saying didn't belong to this life, it applied to this life because I was repeating a pattern. So what I could finally understood was the power of light. Those men were powerful, and they were able to stop those negative beings, because those negative beings were like very aggressive towards me, and they just with a glance like this, they stop. They shut down. They couldn't even touch me, and they said to me, they cannot touch you. You just don't move from this place. So I was thinking a lot about that during these days, and because the world today is extremely aggressive. We are living in uncertain times, but I think that we haven't seen the power of light yet, like this really is the kind of power that I saw. I saw the power of light, how it can, handle the darkness so easily. And I would like to see that. When they took all the negativity I had inside myself, inside my soul, they were so powerful to tell me about that, to show me that darkness, but at the same time, they had compassion with me. They were so soft. I was suffering because I was feeling what I make to others. I was feeling myself, and that was painfully enough. So they didn't push further. They just made me live the process. So yes, it was a recount of my life. And they knew exactly with detail all I have done, good and bad, especially bad.
Thank you, Maria Elena. Jack has a question for you now. He says, thank you for sharing such a profound experience. How has this experience impacted your life course and your current work with others?
Well, it changed my whole life completely. Since that time, since I was 24. The first 5 years, I tried to explain, I tried to find people to explain me what happened to me, but nobody could. So I started to travel. I really started to travel. I met writers, experts in UFOs, things like that, but nobody could give me an explanation. Nobody. So at one point, I decided that I had to live life. I was not living life. I was just trying to find answers for that strong experience. And I couldn't find them at that time until I found a person who was a very old woman. She was 88 when I met her. And she said to me, what you need is spiritual instruction. You need a manual, you need a handbook, and you don't have it. And she said, I have this spiritual background for you, and it's called The Work of Christ. And so I started to study with her, and the work of Christ started to give me the answers I needed. Now, with two friends, with a group of friends, we are starting to translate this knowledge into English. So Gabriela Dávalos just created a channel with the lessons of the work of Christ. So if you look in YouTube, the work of Christ, just audios, okay? And you will find those lessons, the same lessons I learned starting in 1990, more or less. So I studied with this lady for 4 years. And I studied these lessons. I found many answers there. And then I was hired by an international company, so I could travel a lot. And the apostles said to me, whenever you go to a place, you will find someone. And that person will teach you something so you can understand what are the changes in consciousness that we are talking about. So I started to travel for my work. And then, yes, everywhere I found someone who was teaching me what was going on earth. I had no idea. See, for me, I was just a young person with no idea of the rest of the world. Chile is pretty far from the rest of the world. So I started to travel. I went to the United States, to different countries, to Europe. And when in everywhere, in every country, I found a person. So I started to learn about consciousness. And while I was doing that, I was trying to understand what was my role in all this adventure. The world was changing, and I did not realize that. I was living, like a bird. So I said, I have to do something about this. And when I came back to my country, I decided to talk to a group of people, artists, doctors, and philosophers, etc. And I said, I'm going to organize like a congress in Chile. It was the first one called Wake Up Humanity. And the internet was just starting. So it was very hard to meet all the people, but we had a very good experience. I started to organize those encounters so we could talk about consciousness and the changes of the earth and looking at different experiences. So I dedicated my time to meet people with more or less the same spiritual interests. At the same time, I was working and I got married. I found a good man finally. And I got pregnant for my two children. And so I kept taking decisions with my life, decisions that were, I like logistic. So, and I'm very practical person. So I said, okay, I'm not going to meet the apostles until they want in this life or in another life. So I'm going to organize my life as a worker, as a mother, as a wife. I'm going to live as a human being. But even then, when I was taking those decisions and even trying to leave sometimes, like, this spiritual thing, I'm kind of tired of, of these people, And no, it's like I was taking to the to the road again. So at one point in my life, in I think 2003, I had a dream with Jesus, and he said to me, "Look, I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine, and he will be your instructor in dreams." So I woke up and I said to my husband, "Look what happened to me, I'm going to have an instructor." And I had this being in my dreams, so teaching me things that were useful for me at that point in time, and I was taking notes and during the day, and that was another way of teaching that I received. But I never wanted to, sorry, to depend on those communications. I cannot say that I am a channel, for instance. I'm not. I just had these dreams, and in those dreams, I received those teachings too that were useful for my time at that moment. But every day of my life, I remember these apostles. I remember what happened to me during any time during the day. And now what I have done, I have in this moment of my life, I have dedicated to teach spiritual knowledge, especially from the work of Christ, the same instruction that I received. And also other matters too. Now here in my house in the country, we are building a salon, a school, so we can also receive people here, people who want to have knowledge, and if I can help them to find knowledge for themselves, this is also something I like to do. So my whole life has been touched by this experience, and I think it has been a blessing in my life. Even when that beginning was hard, in this moment is a blessing, absolutely a blessing.
Awesome. Thank you, Maria Elena. We have several more questions. Michael would like to know, why do you think indifference was mentioned as the worst thing? Is it the opposite of unconditional love?
I was the opposite of unconditional love. That's where I was so selfish, so selfish, just worried about myself and nobody else and my things. And I didn't mind what other people thought about anything. And of course, unconditional love is not something that was even in my mind at that time. I was not a bad person. I think I was like an average person at that time. But after this experience, of course, when I could experiment at the end of the experience, when I could experiment that love, I think that was unconditional love. I have never felt that kind of love again in my life. Even when I love my children with all my heart, and also my husband, and I love many people, but that love I experimented there, I have never experimented again. And I'm eager to experiment this again. I think as a humanity, we will all experiment this. There are many people also that have experimented it in after death experiences. They feel it, but I don't have words for that. Of course, unconditional love is the best expression, but there are no words in any language to express what you feel at that moment, because it's a mix of pure love. You feel pure. You feel clean, absolutely clean, that There is nothing to worry about, that you have paid for everything and you are ready to be part of a new humanity, a new world where values are going to be different. We won't be more competitive. We will cooperate with each other. We will be generous. We will be good people, sharing love and looking for other people like you look for yourself.
Beautiful. Thank you, Maria Elena. John would like to know, do you still practice Tai Chi? And if so, what type? He says he practices a Yang short form.
Yang. Yes, I practice the Yang, a short form, and I think that Tai Chi was the way that all my body was ready to resist the movement that happened to me. The apostles explained to me that we were in a different dimension. And that's why my friends, when they came the next day with me, we couldn't see them anymore. So I asked them how, why I didn't feel anything strange if we are in another plane. They said plane. And they say because of Tai Chi. You made Tai Chi and that raised your frequency. To meet with you, we had to down our frequency and you have to elevate yours. So we are like in the middle. So Tai Chi is great to raise your energy, to raise your frequency, and also, of course, to have a good physical form. But now, what am I doing to raise my frequency? I'm starting to learn how to play violin. So I've been studying for 2 years. It's very, very hard, but it is my new experiment. So, and it is starting to work, okay? But this is my new challenge, and I feel it also makes you reach very high frequencies.
Mhm. Awesome. Fascinating. Julie would like to know, what was your past life in Egypt? What was it about? Did you interact with Jesus? And why was that life so important for you?
Yes, it was. At one point in 1991, I went to Egypt with my friend Augusta, my master. She was 89 years old when we went together to Egypt. We were the best friends. And she was so healthy and so powerful. And so we went to Egypt. And the first day we were in the hotel and I watched the pyramids and suddenly I started to cry and she was so strong and she said, don't worry, you are channeling, she said to me, and she was supporting me, with her 90 years old. So we went to different temples with her. In every temple, we knew what we had to do. For instance, automatically we took off our shoes. And the people working at the temples, they recognize that as a sign of respect. As a tourist, nobody knows that. We just did it automatically. And I also saw the temples and I recognized the figures. And I could read the figures just by touching the columns. I could read. I knew the meaning of those figures. And actually, they were designed to be read with the hand. But I didn't know that. I just experimented that. And when we arrived to Luxor, then I said, this temple is not complete. There were rooms here in another place, but they are not, we cannot see them now, maybe they are underground or they just don't exist anymore. And I started to remember, and I remember that life spontaneously in that moment. In that life, I was Greek, but I was the youngest of 10 brothers. And so I was given to the temple because, I was the 10th. So I was left there very young, and I started to study with the priest and with other students there. But I had this feeling of having been abandoned by my family at that time. So I started to remember all that. And at one point, a young person arrived, a young man arrived to that temple with two priests, and he was put apart. So I wanted to know who was that young man. And one day with other students, we moved through the window and we met this young man. And he was Yeshua from Nazareth. So we started to talk as friends, just as students. And we had this common place, and he was studying apart from our group. We had a group. So we used to meet from time to time during the day, and we never thought that he was someone special. And after years, he left. And then he came back when he was older, almost, let's say, more or less 29 years old, something like that. And he was very different, but he was our old mate, and we were so happy to meet him again. And at one point, we were all, this group was all reunited in that place in Luxor. And they said that Yeshua was going to start his spiritual journey. And they asked the group, who would like to go with him? And I said, I'm not going to spend all my life between all these dry stones. So I'm leaving. I go with the hippie. So many of the students say, okay, we go. We knew how to heal people. We knew mathematics. We knew statistics. So we could help in some way. So finally, I left the school, I left the stones, and we followed Jesus. It was a big group, like 60 people, but it is not written about these 60 people in the formal story, but I could remember that. So we were not part, probably, of the intimate group of people that surrounded Jesus, but we were given some kind of support, like logistic, for example. If he had to travel from one place to another, who is going to buy the horses, the sandwich for the road, the juice, the wine, things like that. So that was a very beautiful experience that I had in Egypt. So I had to go to Egypt to remember that. But the apostles also knew that. They knew that it was going to be important in my life. I have met Jesus in my dreams 4 times, and one time physically in my room. And it has been quite an impressive and important experience for me too.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Maria Elena. That was absolutely profound and beautiful. I'm sure many, many people are going to love watching this video and hearing about your experience. And we look forward to hearing about some of your other experiences on another occasion. So thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you very much, Yvonne, and Spiritual Awakenings International for having me here. Sorry, my English.
Your English was just fine. We could understand. Thank you so much, Maria Elena.
I'm very happy to have shared this experience with you today. So
Awesome. Awesome.
it has been an honor for me to participate with you.
Thank you.